It's always a good idea to build up your stash of birthday cards, and creating unisex birthday cards is a perfect way to do so, and you haven't got to worry about who you're going to be giving to it whilst you're creating it. My name's Verity and welcome to my channel Pretty Little Button. If you're new here, why not think about subscribing and hitting that bell icon to be notified when my next video is up. So for today's card I'm using 3 embossing powders, and these are part of the new release from Wow Embossing Powders. This is the Ancient Jewels Trio. So it's got 3 different colours of sort of goldy mixed, beautiful mixed blends of embossing powders with some metallics and gold in them. And I'm using these to create a birthday card in this video, and there are also 2 extra cards at the end of the video that you can take a look at for some more inspiration. So for this card, I'm using the PinkFresh Studios Pop Out Sunburst stamp set. So this is a rubber stamp set, so you need to remove your foam pad from your MISTI stamping platform to use it. So I've just closed my MISTI door to pick up that stamp onto my window, and then I'm just removing the outer part of the stamp that just keeps all those pieces aligned together with your packaging as you store it. So I know I'm not going to be stamping the circle in the middle, so I'm just popping that out, hence the name of the stamp, the Pop Out Sunburst. It's great. And then I'm just going to be adding some white card to my MISTI. Now, to ensure it's in the correct position, I am just placing a handle on the back of it first, because that allows me to pack up the panel later on without getting my fingerprints all over the panel and disturbing any embossing powder. And then also I'm applying some repositionable tape over the back before I close my MISTI door. So once it's closed, I'm then going to start to remove some of these sort of rays from the Sunburst, because I want to stamp every 3rd ray in one embossing powder colour. So what I'm just doing is I'm just keeping one in, then counting the next 2 and removing those 2. Now before I actually go on to stamp this, I realised that my embossing pad was a bit dry. And Wow Embossing Powder have a reconditioning tool as well as a freestyle tool. It's 2 sort of uses in one tool. And I'm using this to re-ink my embossing pad. And I'm just showing you how to do it because it's got a rollable sort of nib to it, like a pen. And you just roll this in motions to move that ball to allow the ink to seep into the ink pad. And this will just condition your ink pad and allow you to get really good stamping each time you want to heat emboss. Now my ink pad is re-inked, I can then go and ink up the rubber stamp in my MISTI tool. And once I've covered that quite well with ink, I'm just closing the MISTI door and just pressing down all over the stamps. And then for this first colour, I am using the Egyptian turquoise. This is a lovely sort of dark teal, sort of a grungier teal, mixed with some gold flecks of embossing powder that is absolutely beautiful as it's set. Now, there will be some fine turquoise powder and then some more slightly chunkier bits of gold in there that melt and really change this into a really glamorous, quite ancient looking kind of powder. And I think this trio is perfect for unisex cards because the colours could suit male as well as female cards depending on how you use them. And I wanted to create some cards that I could have on hand to give out quite easily, particularly masculine cards, because I don't make them that often and it's really useful to have on hand. So now I'm just showing you that I'm going to be placing the stamps back in because I now want to stamp the next sort of set of 3. So this is a bit like a puzzle, just popping the pieces back into place, and you just keep rotating them and moving them around until you know which ones you want to do. So I am stamping the next one that's to the right of each of the ones on there as you go around clockwise. And once I've positioned all those additional ones on, I then just go and remove the ones that I've already stamped. And this means that I will now be able to stamp this second lot of sunbursts in a different colour of embossing powder. So I've just inked that up again, and now I'm covering it with Royal Emerald embossing powder from the Ancient Jewels embossing powder. So this has a lovely sort of dark green. Again, it's got mix of some gold powder in there as well. So the main bulk of the colour is the dark green, and then you've got that gold blending in, mixing with it beautifully and adding such an ancient feel and look to the embossing powder. And when you heat set, that gold just blends beautifully with the green. So as I mentioned, these are some new embossing powders that are releasing from Wow Embossing Powder, and this video is part of a release giveaway video and blog hop. So make sure that you look in the description box below to find your next stop on the hop, and the more comments you leave along the hop, the more chance you have of winning the giveaway. The prize includes the whole collection of the new release. These two colours, the turquoise and the emerald green, just look beautiful next to one another. Again, I'm changing the stamps over, so I'll just show you it one more time. It's really easy to do, and you just find the piece that sits next to the one that you currently have stamped. So I'm going to the right again, clockwise. And this is really, really easy to do, a bit like a puzzle. If you enjoy puzzles, you'll quite enjoy this. You need to be able to do this to then put the stamp back together when you want to store it anyway. So you're going to be doing this at some point. And then I'm just removing the ones that I've already stamped and embossed because we don't want to ink those ones up again. We don't want to get embossing powder in the wrong place. So once I've stamped that, I'm now using the Decadent Ruby embossing powder. So this has a lovely, gorgeous, dark red ruby colour with, again, some gold flecks of embossing powders in it. So you'll have the main colour being that ruby, and then when it's heat set, it has some gold blending in over the top of that ruby as well. And you can really see all three colours really well with this stamp side by side because it just shows you the red, the green and the blue, and as they're called the ancient jewels, they're very opulent, these colours, and they look really classy and classic. So to turn this into a card, I then trimmed the panel down and I foam mounted this onto a card panel. Now I wanted to add a sentiment in the middle, but I wanted to pop this up. I'm using the Everyday Sentiment stamp set from Wow Embossing Powder. This is a great set of a variety of different sentiments, and they have a lovely happy birthday in that stamp set. So I'm using this just to heat emboss onto a black card in white embossing powder. Now I've just used a circle die to help position that because I wanted to make sure I had enough space on my cardstock to then cut it out of a circle as well, because I want that to pop up in the centre of the card. Now because I use an anti-static powder on that, I'm just using the eraser to rub off all the stray anti-static powder just to clean it up and brighten up that black cardstock. And to add the sentiment to the card, I added some fun foam to the back to lift it up and raise it from the card panel. To finish off the card, I'm just using my Tonic Studios Crystal Drops in Primary Ebony Black just to add a little bit of embellishment to the card and tie in with the black sentiment. And these embellishments work for both kind of male and female because it's quite a neutral colour, black, and it's not too shiny or glittery. So as you can see, it's got a beautiful look to it. Those different colour embossing powders really do shine with that gold embossing powder. And it's quite, like it says, quite ancient jewel-like in appearance. I created 2 additional cards using the same embossing powders. For these, I just created some card panels first of all in each of the embossing powders, and then I trimmed them down to various different strips. So here I just have a strip of each embossing powder on the front, and I've used the Altenew Tall Alphabet die set to add the happy along with a stamped birthday sentiment. For the third card, I trimmed them down into thinner strips. I used 2 strips from each of the embossing powders, and I created a sort of a great grid pattern on the front. And then I also added the happy word using the Altenew Fine Alphabet die set, an additional stamped sentiment for the word birthday. I hope you find time to watch all the videos and enjoy this hop full of inspiration. For 10% discount at the Wow Embossing Powder shop, just use the code you can see on screen. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I hope to see you again soon. Until next time, happy crafting!